Welcome to the 1031 Exchange Passive Income and Investment Series. This show is brought to you by 1031navigator.com. 1031 Navigator is the best way to plan, execute, and complete your 1031 exchange with peace of mind and confidence while saving you both time and money.
Hey everybody, Thomas Morgan here, 1031 Navigator. Happy Friday afternoon. Going to try and sneak in a quick episode here with some listener questions and client questions that I've had over the last few weeks. A couple of them I get all the time, so I thought it'd be good to cover them. But basically, I'm just going to read the questions real quick, and then I'll cover each one by one. So number one, should I do a 1031 exchange? Number two, do you offer free consultations? 3, do you work with brokers? 4, do you require an exclusive? 5, do you require a written agreement? And 6, besides triple net properties, what do you think of multifamily and or mobile home parks for 1031 exchanges? So question number 1, should I do a 1031 exchange? In most cases, the answer is going to be yes. There are a few occasions when you might say no, or maybe you'd want to consider it more. I could do a whole episode on this, but for the purposes of today's episode, we're just going to give a quick answer. Basically, if someone's going to give you free money to invest for as long as you want, why wouldn't you take it? So if you have a capital gain, which is what the 1031 exchange is for, and you have the opportunity to either pay Uncle Sam, write them a check, forever lose that money in the form of a tax payment, or get continued use of that money indefinitely and get a rate of return on that money, which would you choose? In most cases, why wouldn't you keep the money and reinvest it and keep it growing? I think 1031 exchanges are some of the greatest, or is one of the greatest wealth building tools available to any investor. I've had clients who have 1031 exchange as long as the 1031 program has been around. I think the client with the most 1031 exchanges, I think, has done 12 exchanges over the years. So he's continually rolled those gains over and over and over into new investments and gets the compound effect of that money growing. For example, last week on a deal, a client was considering doing a 1031 or not doing a 1031 and trying to evaluate the reasons. And if you do the quick math on it, $3 million sale, so $3 million exchange they're looking at. They've owned the property long enough so that their tax liability is about $1 million by the time you add in capital gain, Obamacare tax, depreciation recapture. A lot of people think that capital gain is just limited to the capital gains tax, but you have to calculate in the healthcare tax if you're in the certain tax bracket, and you definitely have to calculate in the depreciation recapture. And a lot of people don't realize what that is. And we could do another episode about that. But the tax is actually greater than what most people think. But in this case, the tax liability was about $1 million. We're looking at rolling them into a portfolio of Dollar Generals. And so the basic math was that if we invest at a 7% return on those Dollar Generals, $70,000 a year, the leases are 15-year leases. Over the course of the lease, they'll get another $1.05 million of income back on that $1 million gain that they otherwise, $1 million tax that they otherwise would have had to pay to the government today. So, one, why would they not do a 1031 and pay that money to Uncle Sam today versus rolling it into a solid, stable, long-term passive investment? So the math is real simple on that. We can do a more complicated analysis, and essentially it takes into account time value of money, timing of the cash flows, And I have a big spreadsheet we can use, but I do that for some of my clients who have been clients for a long time, or I do it as a fee-based service. So if someone wanted me to do it, it'd be a couple $100 and I could run the numbers. And essentially we plug in the project that you are selling or have sold, and we look at when you bought it, what your tax situation was, what the cash flows were coming out of the sale, and then what your potential tax liability would be. And then we plug in different alternatives to what you might be buying, what type of property that would be. And then we run a time value of money calculation on all of that. And we can see whether or not it would make sense to do a 1031 and keep deferring the tax, or to go ahead and pay your tax today. In most cases, the longer you've owned the property or the bigger the gain, you're going to want to do a 1031 because the numbers just make sense and add up into your favor. If you've only owned the property for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and or your gain isn't that big, a couple $100,000, $100,000, $500,000, it goes back to the time value of money for how long that holding period was and how big the gain is. In some cases, it would actually make sense to go ahead and pay the tax today, step up your basis, and then reinvest the after-tax proceeds. And I have a tool we use to look at that, and we can run A, B, C, D scenarios. But basically, yes, it makes sense to do a 1031 because you're getting free use of money that would otherwise go to tax and not be your money anymore. And again, I could do a whole episode on that, and we could get more technical in terms of net present value and IRR, internal rate of return, compounding, and look at how a 1031 investment would grow over time. So question number 2, do you offer free consultations? Basically, everything I do is free. So, and I say that jokingly because I don't charge my clients typically anything. There's no hourly fees. There's no setup fee. There's no retainer, anything like that. I've said it before. Just like a normal real estate brokerage business, we get paid by the seller or the listing broker. So I like to joke that I'm the best deal going in town, and we essentially work for free until we close a deal and make a deal happen. The podcast is free. We'll offer this freely to everybody, and hopefully it's helpful. But we do in the past have offered free consultations, and basically people call me, and new client calls or emails, and anything we do for them is free. Even at the closing, it's free because we get paid by the seller or the listing broker. But so the answer is yes, we do free consultations. The issue with the 1031 business is it's time frame driven based on when someone closed a deal and when that 45-day, 180-day clock starts ticking. So right now we have 10 different people in their ID period. So we're in the 45-day period. So super busy trying to place deals, find the right deals, evaluate the right deals within the 45 days to make sure we can identify those deals. And unfortunately, I had to turn a listener down, or I had to defer free consultation out till the middle of February until some of these 45-day periods end. So happy to do free consultations. Right now, if you're not in a 1031, or if you're out a few weeks, few months, whatever, on your closing date, the free consultation would be deferred. But basically, you can send an email. We'll look at your dates. We'll look at your price, whatnot. Look at your requirement, and essentially, whoever's ready right now gets the attention because the clock's ticking, and that's the way 1031s work. You have to meet those deadlines. The other option, I gave this listener the option this week, instead of waiting till middle of February to get the questions answered. Anybody can send me a list of questions, and I'd be happy to answer them on air like this. Or if you wanted to, send a voice memo, and I'd be happy to play your voice memo with questions on air and then answer the questions. So, but basically, what we do is free, and hopefully you're getting some value from it. Number 3, do you work with brokers? Yes, we work with brokers all day long, every day. Some deals are direct with developers and or principals. I work with sellers brokers all the time because I'm essentially a buyer's broker. But if you're a broker listening to this, and if you're a commercial broker with 1031 experience, if you contact me, basically what I'm going to say is I don't do your job for you. You need to do it for your client. So that's that. However, if you want to enter into a referral fee agreement, I'd be happy to do that. And then we have 2 other scenarios with brokers. I get residential brokers who call and they have a client who's doing 1031. Maybe they've helped them with some other kind of deal. It's a family friend or something. And they're not triple net experts or 1031 experts. And so all parties agree just to enter into a referral fee agreement. And that works great for everyone because then the client gets top-notch triple net 1031 advice. The residential broker doesn't go out of their wheelhouse and their expertise, and then they participate in the transaction and get a little piece of the action. So that's a good way to do it. So the third example is when a principal calls and they are a licensed broker and they're trying to participate in the fees in the deal. And that goes back to the first example. They're a broker and they're trying to collect a fee, then they can do the deal themselves and rely on their own expertise. They don't need to have us involved. However, if they want to not collect a fee as a principal, and I have a lot of principals who do that. They're licensed real estate brokers, but they want the triple net 1031 expertise. And so they say, look, I'm not going to participate in the fee structure, and I want you to help me do the deal. So that's no problem. Or in some cases, I might have a family member who calls and their dad or mom or sister or whatever, they're all in the deal. One of them's a broker. If they don't have the expertise, kind of goes back to the second example, but they still want to get a piece of the action. So I'm happy to pay a referral fee on that. So those are the 3 examples of working with brokers. We're happy to cooperate. And then, in terms of being a listing broker, we've listed and sold tons of deals. I just did the Walgreens last fall where I co-listed it with a friend of mine. I had sold them the deal back in 2012, and I wanted to maximize the value for the client. So I co-listed it with a team who I know that can maximize the value. That was a almost $15 million transaction. And so we do act as listing broker on certain deals, but in most cases, we like to stay in our wheelhouse. And for example, I've had 2 clients in the last month come to me with Dollar Generals and say, hey, look, I want to sell these. I've owned them for a few years, want to do something else with the money, move the money around for various reasons. And in those cases, I said, look, my expertise is buy-side advisory, 1031 exchanges. And that's what I like doing. That's what I'm really good at. And there's lots of people out there who are good sellers brokers and have the team set up with the marketing and the offering memorandums. And that can also drive value for the seller. So in those 2 cases, I referred those Dollar General clients out to really good sellers brokers. And, I can focus on what I do. They can focus on what they do, and it still maximizes the value for the client. And again, my buy side expertise is to get the lowest price, negotiate the best terms, and find the best long term stable property that will have good upside when they go to resell it. So, in theory, if I do my job on the front end, and a year or 2 later we take them to a specialized sellers broker, the property is in a good position to sell and to maximize the value. For example, on that Walgreens we did, the client made $2 million. So they bought it for a little over $12 million, sold it for a little over $14 million, and profited $2 million. So I did my job on both ends of the transaction and brought in expertise on the back end as needed to maximize the value. Number 4, do I require an exclusive? And the answer to that is no. I don't require anyone to sign an exclusive agreement. I have that option for people if they want to go exclusive with me, and we can offer a rebate on the fees. Sometimes we credit the 1031 QI fee to them if people sign an exclusive. But I really, recommend and preach that people shouldn't do an exclusive. Like, why marry yourself to a broker team or brokerage when there's a lot of people out there who will hustle and do a good job for you and find you the right deal? If you sign an exclusive with someone, you're married to them, and they're not going to really work as hard. There's really not much motivation for them to go find you the best deal because they're not competing. So what I like to say is, may the best man or woman win the business and find the deal. I don't require exclusives. I can if you want, and there's some benefits to doing so. But in general, I don't know why anyone would sign an exclusive, because it goes back to question number 2 on free services. Most brokers work for free. So why not have 2 or 3 brokers who you like working with find you the deals? See who has time available, see who has expertise, see who has the best connections, and then just honor the relationship with whoever brings you the deal, does the deal for you. So, may the best person, or the person with the most hustle, most tenacity, best connections, best skills, whatnot, win the business. So I wouldn't sign an exclusive, and I don't know why other people do. And I know that a lot of the big brokerages require people to sign exclusives, but I think as a client, you're doing yourself a disservice if you do that. And that leads into number 5. So on the flip side, do you require a written agreement? And the answer there is yes. And the reason being is I'm a professional. I've been doing this for a long time. I have a lot of knowledge and experience. I know what's going on in the marketplace day to day, and I treat this as a profession, and therefore I am a professional. And if you went to, the dentist, attorney, accountant, investment advisor, they're all going to require some sort of written agreement. So I do require a written agreement. If someone's not willing to sign that, it's a non-exclusive agreement, and it just basically outlines the working procedure of how we present deals, how we find deals, the time frame, other brokers, deal introduction, confidentiality, non-circumvention, compensation, just basic things that any brokerage is going to require. A lot of the things are similar to an exclusive agreement, but it's non-exclusive, so you can work with whoever you want, but it just outlines what is going to happen in the relationship, how it's going to happen, and what kind of skill sets and expertise and professionalism is there. And I do require that. If someone's not willing to sign it, then they can take a hike and go work with someone else who wants to waste their time. But basically, simple 2-page agreement covers everything. And happy to share that if you want to email me and see a copy of that. But I do require that to work with people. And then number 6, last question. Besides triple net properties, what do you think of multifamily and mobile home parks for 1031 investment? I think almost any property is good for, not property specifically, but property types are good for 1031 investments. It really depends on what your goals are, what you're after, what you're shooting for, what kind of investor you are. Are you active? Are you passive? How old you are? Who are the beneficiaries of the investments? Things like that. This podcast is 1031 Exchange Passive Income Series, and we specialize in passive income investments. And so our niche is triple net properties, because those are the truest form of passive real estate ownership, where you don't have to do anything, or you have to do very little except just collect a check and maybe a little bit of oversight. Most of our clients, as I've said before, are over 65, 70 years old. They're at a stage in their life where they just want that passive income. They don't want to be bugged. So that's why our focus is there, because that's just what we've had a lot of experience doing, and that's what a lot of the 1031 buyers want, is they've accumulated wealth through other properties, let's say active management properties like multifamily or mobile home parks or industrial office, stuff like that. They've been developers. They've been value add investors where they've leased up strip centers and then sold them. They've done ground up development, subdivisions, stuff like that. But they're at a point in their life where they just don't want to do that anymore, and they just want to park the money and get an income stream. So that's just kind of the nature of the 1031 market, is people moving from active investment to passive investment. However, on the flip side, there's a lot of investors, and I've had several people call me in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and they're hands-on people. They're experienced business owners, they're experienced real estate investors, they're developers, etc. And if you have that experience and you're not at that point in your life where you want to just go play golf and go to the beach and explore your hobby or whatever, then yes, you definitely should 1031 exchange into a more active management property, like a multifamily deal or industrial deal or a value add strip center, things like that. I love all property types, and I've done pretty much all property types. I currently manage and operate over 100 units across 3 mobile home parks for a family-owned company, and we get great returns on the mobile home parks. And I know all the ins and outs of how to operate a mobile home park. So, I mean, we could do a whole episode about mobile home parks and water lines and sewer lines and park-owned homes versus lot rent versus personal property versus leases and tenant applications, and why mobile home parks do good in a good economy or a bad economy. And so I really like those, and my family really likes those, and we get anywhere easily 8 to 15% returns on our mobile home parks through various income streams that the mobile home parks generate. So I think those are definitely worthwhile. For another client, I'm doing a $20 million multifamily exchange. They are multifamily developers, owners, and investors, and they're very hands-on. They're fine with value add, opportunistic type multifamily deals. They're fine with student housing. They're fine with Class C rehab type multifamily deals. So, that's a referral from a triple net client who had a client, friend who does multifamily, and that's all they want to do. They're in their early 60s, and they don't want to just do passive triple net. They're just not at that stage yet. They'd rather get a higher return. And basically that's what it comes down to, is when you have a more active management or a higher risk profile, you're going to demand a higher return on that money versus the triple net, passive, hands-off, low risk is going to be, half that return. So it really depends on your investor profile, what you're after, stage in your life, what your capital stack looks like, and your investment portfolio looks like. But, I think, any type of property can make sense. You just have to evaluate the property on the merits, do your due diligence, look at the market fundamentals, and see if that makes sense as an investment. And if it does, great. And it just, the next thing is, do you feel like operating that type of investment relative to what kind of return you're going to get? So hopefully I answered some questions, offered some insight, and have a good weekend. And if there's anything I can do for you, let me know.
Thanks for listening to the 1031 Exchange Passive Income and Investment Series. To help create, grow, and protect your wealth with 1031 exchanges and triple net properties, visit 1031navigator.com or call 1-866-539-1777. Again, call 1-866-539-1777. Make sure to remember to ask Thomas about our 1031 VIP program. You can put thousands of dollars in your pocket on your next 1031. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review it where your podcasts are peddled. And if you have a friend considering a 1031, make sure to share this show with them. A referral is the best compliment we can receive. Thanks for listening, and see you again soon. And remember, this show is provided for your informational and educational purposes only. Be sure to check with your accountant, lawyer, and/or other tax professionals and advisors before relying on this information. Although the information contained herein is believed to be accurate and reliable, we do not guarantee its accuracy or completeness, and it is provided without warranty. Common sense is the best practice.